My name is Sarah Jenkins. A changed character name. After losing my job and going through a period of instability, I longed for a place that was different, quiet, somewhere I could start over. I've always been quite introverted, easily affected by external pressures. This sudden change made me even more anxious and sensitive than usual. I found an old house advertised for a very cheap price in a small, rather isolated neighborhood, near a small town in Georgia. The house was number 17. A changed location name. From the outside, it looked ordinary. An old-style architecture with faded paint and an overgrown garden. It wasn't exactly scary, but it had a peculiar stillness, as if it had been forgotten for a very long time. When I moved in on a summer afternoon in 2023, the air here was very fresh, but there was also a strange silence. I felt a heavy atmosphere as soon as I stepped into the house. There was a smell of dust, old decaying wood, and something hard to describe, like damp earth or mud. The light inside was quite dim, even with all the curtains drawn. This quiet neighborhood only had a few houses close by. Right next to my house were two neighbors, Mark and Gary. Changed names. They looked normal, quite friendly, and came to greet me on my very first day. They introduced themselves as longtime friends. Growing up in this area, however, I felt something a little strange about them. An excessive curiosity and sometimes furtive glances towards my house. House number 17. I had hoped this would be my safe haven. But I had no idea that the stillness and isolation of this place were hiding a horrifying secret. And those seemingly friendly neighbors were carrying a sinful past. This new beginning in a strange place was about to turn into a nightmare I might never escape. The first few days at house number 17 passed in silence. I tried to get used to the house, arrange furniture, and learn to live alone in this strange place. However, the heavy atmosphere in the house never seemed to dissipate, and the first terrifying signs began to appear. Small, strange noises that I couldn't explain. The creaking of floorboards when no one was there. The sound of a door gently opening, closing when there was no draft. A feeling as if someone was walking around the house at night. Sometimes, I heard sounds like a small object being dragged across the wooden floor from upstairs. I tried to be rational, telling myself it was just the noises of an old house, or sounds from outside, but the feeling of being watched became more intense. I felt as if someone was in the house with me. When I turned around suddenly, I felt as if I saw a shadow flit by in the corner of my eye, disappearing the moment I tried to look directly at it. There was a particularly cold area in the house, at the end of the hallway leading down to the basement. Every time I walked past it, I felt an unusual cold draft hit me, sending shivers down my spine. The basement was dark and damp. I never dared to go down there alone. I also started having strange dreams. Vague, unclear dreams, but always involving images of darkness, struggle, and extreme fear. Sometimes, I heard something like a muffled sob in my dream. Mark and Gary still checked in on me occasionally. They seemed concerned, but their eyes still made me uncomfortable. They often asked about the house, about how I felt staying there. "How do you like the house?" Gary asked, his eyes looking straight at me with a probing look. "It's old, but quite peaceful," I replied, trying to smile. "Ah, this house is very quiet indeed," Mark said, and I felt a forced smile on his lips. Whispers from the basement. I started hearing strange noises coming from the basement, like faint scratching on the basement door, or something like a very weak whisper. These first terrifying signs were slowly causing me to lose sleep. I knew that something unusual was happening at this house number 17. And it wasn't just simply the noises of an old house. The first terrifying signs had now escalated into a real escalation of the haunting. The noises in the house were no longer subtle. Footsteps upstairs were now very clear, as if someone was walking or running in the empty rooms. Doors opened, closed more forcefully, sometimes sounding like they were being slammed. The feeling of being watched was so intense that I felt as if someone was standing right behind my back. Their cold breath on my neck. I didn't dare turn my back when I was alone. The unusual cold at the end of the hallway leading to the basement and some other spots in the house was now bone-chillingly cold. Every time I walked past there, I felt an invisible presence. A presence full of hostility. I started seeing faint figure more clearly in the corner of my eye. These figures were no longer just black shadows, sometimes I felt they had color. And the shape of a woman. These figures often appeared in the hallway, or on the stairs leading upstairs. Mirrors reflected terrifying images. Sometimes, when looking in the mirror, I felt as if my reflection was slightly off, or saw a shadow flit by behind me in the mirror even though no one was there. My dreams became more vivid and terrifying. I dreamed of being trapped in darkness, struggling, and hearing terrifying laughter, mournful cries. Once, I dreamed of being in the basement, and saw a horrifying scene. But upon waking, I couldn't remember the details. I started doubting myself. Was all of this just due to stress and isolation? Or was this house driving me insane? But these phenomena were too real to be imagination. Mark and Gary also seemed to notice a change in me. They looked at me with worried eyes, and seemed to avoid talking about the house. Once, when I was talking to Gary outside, I suddenly felt a horrible cold draft radiating from the basement of the house. Gary also shivered. "Do you feel anything?" I asked. Gary looked at me, his face slightly pale. Nothing. Must just be cold." But I knew he felt it too. The escalation of the haunting was happening, and I felt as if I was being targeted by something evil. Right in my own house. That faint figure. It seemed to be looking for something. Or looking for someone. The escalation of the haunting was becoming unbearable. The faint figure appeared more frequently. And sometimes, I felt as if I saw the pale, terrifying face of a young girl, full of pain or anger. Even if only for a second. The noises in the house were so intense that I couldn't get any sleep. Footsteps running frantically upstairs, objects crashing, doors slamming, and also crying. Not a child's cry, but the sobbing of a young girl. I knew I needed to find out the truth behind this house. Behind these strange phenomena, especially the connection to Mark and Gary, the neighbors who seemed to know something but were hiding it. I started searching for information about the history of house number 17. Asking the oldest local residents, they were very reluctant to talk about this house. Searching online news archives of the town, looking for old records, if accessible. And then, the horrifying pieces gradually connected. House number 17 wasn't just simply an old house. About 10 years ago, within the timeframe you requested, a terrible tragedy occurred related to this house and the surrounding area. A young girl named Lily Adams, a changed name, who lived nearby, went missing. At first, people thought she had run away. But later, an investigation was conducted, and the horrifying truth was revealed. Lily was lured by two close friends, taken to a secluded place. It might have been house number 17 itself, or a nearby area, and was raped. Afterwards, to silence her because they feared being reported and going to prison. The two killed Lily brutally. Her body was found later. But the case was never fully solved. And the culprits were never brought to justice according to the law. The horrifying truth. The secret of number 17. And what was even more terrifying, through descriptions in old news articles, I realized the two close friends were Mark and Gary. They were the ones who killed Lily. Lily's tragedy, the tragic death of a young girl due to the wickedness and cowardice of people she knew. Her spirit, full of anger and of thirst for revenge, was bound to the place where she suffered ultimate pain and died. Perhaps, house number 17 was where the crime happened. Or perhaps, her body was hidden here. Or perhaps, she simply came here to haunt those who stole her life. The horrifying truth gradually came to light, explaining all the strange phenomena in the house. The sobbing cry was Lily's cry. The faint figure was her spirit. The noises, the cold, the reflection in the mirror, all were manifestations of the pain and anger of a vengeful spirit. And I, Sarah Jenkins, had unintentionally moved into house number 17, where a vengeful spirit was seeking justice. The truth about Mark and Gary's crime, and the fact that they were the ones who killed Lily, terrified me completely. House number 17 wasn't just haunted, it was a place where a vengeful spirit was present. Desperate for justice, I knew that the soul seeking vengeance wasn't just haunting the house. She was targeting Mark and Gary. And I unintentionally was in the middle. I didn't know what to do. Call the police? Would they believe a story about a ghost? Moreover, I had no concrete evidence other than the supernatural phenomena and the old story I had found. Tension reached its peak. The haunting in the house was more intense than ever. Lily's figure was clearer, sometimes standing at the end of the hallway staring at me with eyes full of resentment. I heard her whispering Mark and Gary's names, her voice full of anger. One night, I couldn't bear it anymore. Fear and haunting were driving me insane. Suddenly, I heard very loud banging on the front door. The banging was frantic, as if someone was trying to break into the house. I shivered. Was it Mark and Gary? Did they know I had found out the truth and want to silence me? Or was it something else? The banging on the door grew more violent. The door rattled violently. Then, the noise stopped abruptly. An eerie silence enveloped the house. And then, I heard noises from inside the house. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Objects being knocked over. I knew it wasn't me. It was something else. I backed away, trembling all over. And then, at the end of the hallway upstairs, in the darkness, I saw Lily's figure, clearer than ever before. She stood there, wearing the clothes she might have worn on that fateful night. Looking wet and stained, her face was pale, full of pain and anger. Her deep black, hollow eyes stared straight at me. And then, that gaze shifted, looking towards the front door, as if she knew who was outside. Noises echoed again from the direction of the front door. Scratching sounds, groaning sounds, the fateful confrontation, the vengeful spirit and the ones who killed her. House number 17 became the arena. I stood there, witnessing, terrified completely. I don't know what was happening at the front door, but I knew that the soul-seeking vengeance was at work. And perhaps, justice, in the most brutal way, was being served. I couldn't bear it anymore. I turned around and rushed towards the back door, trying to escape from this horrifying house. The noise from the front door continued, sounding terrifying, mixed with screams and sounds of struggle. I managed to open the back door and rushed outside. I ran wildly into the night, without stopping, without looking back at house number 17. I ran until I was exhausted. Until I reached the streetlights. I didn't call the police. I was afraid. Afraid of what I had seen. Afraid of what might have happened to Mark and Gary. And afraid of the soul seeking vengeance itself. I left that small town the very next morning, never daring to return. I don't know what truly happened to Mark and Gary that night. There were vague rumors in the town afterwards about their sudden disappearance, or unfortunate events befalling them. House number 17 was left empty again. No one dared to go near it. The spirit's justice. I don't know if Lily got her bloody revenge, but I know that her spirit manifested, and she sought vengeance. The haunting still clung to me. The image of Lily's pained and angry face, her sobbing cries, the banging on the door, the struggle from that fateful night, all replayed in my mind. I could never forget what I had witnessed. I lived in constant anxiety, afraid that the soul seeking vengeance would find me, because I was a witness. House number 17, the mark of revenge, is probably still haunted, and Lily's spirit, perhaps, has not yet found complete peace. My story is a warning. There are crimes that happen in the darkness, hidden away, but the victims' souls will never rest in peace. They will seek justice, seek vengeance, and sometimes, those who unintentionally step into their lives, or into the place where the tragedy occurred, will be drawn into that nightmare. If you enjoyed true horror stories, or stories based on accounts and mysterious locations, like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.